U.S. election results 2024 live updates, voting opens in key swing state Arizona. U.S. election results 2024, United States presidential polls results 2024 live counting news updates, alongside Arizona, voters in Colorado, Montana, Nebraska, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming are also now casting ballots. U.S. presidential election results 2024 live updates, polls are now open in Arizona, a vital swing state along the U.S.-Mexico border, the BBC reported. Alongside Arizona, voters in Colorado, Montana, Nebraska, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming are also now casting ballots. The first ballot for the 2024 U.S. presidential elections was cast in New Hampshire. Harris and Trump tied with 3 votes each in the tiny New Hampshire community of Dixville Notch, which opened and closed its poll just after midnight ET in a decades-old tradition. U.S. presidential election results 2024, get latest updates here. The previous day, the candidates held their final campaign events in battleground states. Harris ended her 107-day campaign in Pennsylvania, while Trump spoke in Michigan, where he has ended 3 of his presidential campaigns. U.S. presidential election result, date and time in India. Here's what you need to know. As Harris and Trump continue to be locked in a tight race, voting in the U.S. began between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. local time. 6 a.m. Eastern Time is 4:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time, 6 a.m. Pacific Time is 7:30 p.m. in India. More than 74 million votes have already been cast nationwide, almost half of the total number of votes cast in 2020, in the form of mail-in ballots or early in-person voting. In the national polling average, as of Sunday, Harris enjoyed a slight edge over Trump. Voters are arriving at a polling station in West Palm Beach where Donald Trump is expected to cast his ballot. Accompanied by Melania Trump, he is expected to address the crowd after voting. Although Puerto Ricans can't vote in U.S. presidential elections, they can symbolically support Trump or Harris this election day. The main focus, however, is on electing a new governor. If Jennifer Gonzalez from the pro-statehood New Progressive Party wins, her party will secure a historic 3rd consecutive term. Juan Dalmau's potential victory would mark the first time in decades a candidate outside the main 2 parties takes office. Nearly 2 million eligible voters will also weigh in on Puerto Rico's political status amidst a backdrop of political apathy, the AP reported. Polls are now open in Arizona, a vital swing state along the U.S.-Mexico border where results will play a crucial role for both presidential candidates. Arizona, spotlighted in 2020 due to election misinformation and protests, remains highly contested, the BBC reported. Alongside Arizona, voters in Colorado, Montana, Nebraska, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming are also now casting ballots as election day progresses. The stakes are high, with Arizona's outcome particularly pivotal given its influence in close races. Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance voted in person at St. Anthony of Padua Church in Cincinnati. Accompanied by his wife, Usha, and their children, the Ohio senator appeared upbeat, the CNN reported. After casting his ballot, Vance briefly addressed reporters, sharing his optimism about Election Day. Polls are officially open in Arkansas, bringing the number of voting states to nearly 30, the BBC reported. Arkansas holds 6 electoral votes, a smaller count than populous states like California, 54, and New York, 28, which is based partly on population size. This comes shortly after states like Mississippi and North Dakota opened their polls. With millions already casting early votes, Election Day progresses as more states join in determining the future of the U.S. Election Day has arrived, with voters choosing between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris in a fiercely contested race. The election has drawn millions of early votes, with more expected in person today. Harris, seeking to be the first female president, promises to work across party lines. Trump, however, aims for sweeping federal changes, including major tariffs and a large-scale deportation operation. For those of you just joining in, over half of the U.S. states are now open for voting, including Texas and swing state Wisconsin, which holds 10 pivotal electoral votes. Other states that have joined include Alabama, Iowa, Kansas, Minnesota, Mississippi, North Dakota, Oklahoma, and South Dakota. Vote threshold to win. Both presidential candidates need 270 electoral votes to secure the presidency, with battleground states like Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin being crucial for either side. The red mirage and blue shift, election watchers might observe a red mirage, where early counts lean Republican, followed by a blue shift as mail-in ballots, often Democratic, are counted later. These shifts reflect voting method timelines rather than fraud. Indian American candidates. Over 36 Indian Americans are running for state and local elections, particularly in California, which is home to prominent Indian American representatives like Ro Khanna, Dr. Ami Bera, and Vice President Kamala Harris. Swing state voting opens. Key states like Georgia, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, each critical to the election outcome, are seeing significant voter turnout as polls open. Long queues have formed in Pennsylvania, where Kamala Harris held her final rally. Stay tuned for continued updates as Election Day unfolds across the U.S. It's now 8 a.m. on the U.S. East Coast, and polls are open across more than half of U.S. states. 10 new states, including Texas and the crucial swing state of Wisconsin, have joined in voting. The states beginning ballots include Alabama, Iowa, Kansas, with flexibility by county, Minnesota, Mississippi, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Texas, and Wisconsin, which holds 10 electoral votes that could be pivotal in the outcome, the BBC reported. As Election Day continues, more states will follow, making this a decisive moment across the country. Stay tuned for further updates. The candidates need 270 votes to win. The battleground states are Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. On election night, you might hear about a red mirage or blue shift. This happens when early vote counts, often favoring Republicans, are overtaken by later mail-in ballots that skew Democratic. In past elections, such shifts fueled unfounded fraud claims, but they reflect differing vote count timelines rather than irregularities. The Harris campaign hopes this will be her trump card. The vice president has positioned herself as a champion of reproductive rights, and has promised to bring national legislation on abortion rights. Abortion has been a huge concern for women voters after the conservative-majority Supreme Court overturned the landmark Roe v. Wade verdict in 2022. According to the New York Times, 21 states have banned or restricted abortions earlier in pregnancy than what was set by Roe v. Wade over 5 decades ago. Trump has been shaky on this issue. He has taken credit for appointing the 3 judges that cemented the Supreme Court's conservative majority, but has avoided talking much about abortion. The New York Times/Siena poll has found that the gender gap remains wide across all 7 states, with Harris the favorite of women and Trump preferred by men, according to the New York Times. Over 36 Indian Americans are running for local bodies and state legislation elections across the country, reflecting the growing interest among this small ethnic community to be part of political mainstream. If you are not at the table, you are on the menu. Indian American Congressman Raja Krishnamurti comments at various Indian American gatherings, motivating and encouraging community members to run for elections at all levels. Probably the largest number of Indian Americans running for local offices are in the state of California, which sends 2 members to the House of Representatives, Ro Khanna and Dr. Ami Bera, in addition to Vice President Kamala Harris, whose mother was from India. Polling is now open in the swing states of Georgia and Michigan, with voting underway in more than 20 U.S. states, as per the BBC. Another swing state, Pennsylvania, is witnessing polling, with its 19 electoral college votes. These are the states where polling has opened as of 7 a.m. on the east coast of the U.S. Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Missouri, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Washington, D.C. Voter queues have started to build up in another key state, Pennsylvania, as polls are about to open, BBC reported. The state witnessed Kamala Harris address her final rally the previous day, with fresh signs of "Defend Democracy" being attached to lampposts. With the United States heading to polls Tuesday, the control of the Congress is at stake in elections that could flip both the House of Representatives and the Senate. Citing nonpartisan analysts, news agency Reuters reported that Republicans stand a good chance of taking back the Senate, where the Democrats hold a 51-49 majority. However, the Republicans might lose their grip on the House, wherein the Democrats only need 4 seats to gain a majority. An October Reuters Ipsos poll found 43% of registered voters would back the Republican candidate in their district, while 43% would back the Democratic candidate. Millions of American citizens will be casting their votes on Tuesday, November 5, to choose the next president of the United States of America. Their choices are Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris, the current vice president, and former U.S. President Donald Trump from the Republican side. Silicon Valley has long been considered as the territory of tech progressives. But several vocal tech billionaires